Ready? Aim!
There's too many!
Anyone see my mammoth?
Stubby! Hello! And I'm immediately out of focus. Cool, welcome. It's another week. I realised I forgot to change the banner from the LGT banners to something else, which I'll have to sort out at the end of today's stream. Whoopsie. But I haven't got any good banners to put up there. Maybe I'll make a new thing. I don't know. Anyway, I'm back. My name's still Mickey, of course. And I'm yet again joined by the slightly less blurry Carlo. How you doing today, Carlo?
Good, yeah, all good.
Good. Had a good weekend? Do anything fun in the last week?
I was away at not far from my house, busy over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Just checking in now and again what was going on over in Poland, having a look at the end of each day because I was busy during the days. There were some disappointingly unsurprising results, but you know.
We'll get into that in a minute, no doubt.
It looked like a great event, so we'll chat about that soon.
And yeah, Peter, as a guest today. Peter, nice to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And how was your weekend?
I was at Polish Nationals, obviously. Had a lot of fun playing. And I guess I'm here to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah. So we'll dive straight in with Polish Nationals. You had, I think they had 94 players in the end. 94 players in the end playing the event.
Yeah, I think 2 players dropped last moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love the banner on the front side. I guess it's the least represented units that were used.
That's actually a good point.
I for sure saw some brigands, but I don't think I ever saw the mummers.
Wow, I thought you'd see.
I was actually looking that there was a list that placed very highly with mummers in it, I think.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
But with which? With cavalry members or with?
Both. It's Koska 220, the highest finishing Lannister player. I was just looking at what his lists were, and he's running a Kevin list that has Mummer Skirmishers and Mummer Zorse Riders.
Oh, yeah,
so
right.
There you go.
And 2 NCU?
Lannister picks.
Incredible.
And I did check. He mostly played Adam, because what I was actually looking at was whether or not he only played Adam. He only fielded that list once, but he did field it. This isn't a meme of, one NCU's nearly won an Adepticon, because no, they had a 100% loss rate at Adepticon the one time that they were fielded. So they didn't nearly win Adepticon. This list was actually fielded and did actually win against another actively good list. Mm-hmm. So there you go. Mummers saw play in both forms in one list. Didn't even have the Vargo affiliation. You just backed them to be useful.
Insane. Man is clearly insane, or much bigger brained than every other Lannister player out there. So, go on then, Peter. Tell us about the event itself. So, we'll get on to games and stuff later. But
okay, so the event itself was held at the same venue as the previous event, organized by the manufacturer. So it's kind of, I guess, if I were to translate it, it's a centrum for intellectual sports. So I guess they have something like chess events maybe going on there. So it's a great venue because last time when we talked, I mentioned they have this like restaurant next door, and you basically have like a window in the wall through which you can get food. And this time it was even included, because for that amount of people it would be unrealistic to just order. So it was mass order, so you could choose between those two. It was a little bit crowded because basically like 100 people limit was the limit of the venue. So if you can see this from the photos, and it became a little bit loud because the ceiling is a little bit low. But I mean, it was still a great place. I still enjoyed it a lot. So we had 6 games, so 3 games every day. There was this time like a painting competition with some crazy crazy entrance, like with some crazy NMM and freehand. So I didn't even dare to enter it. And yeah, otherwise, I guess the event was fun. Besides, but this time, I guess we can talk about Wrocław meta instead of Warsaw meta because as you can see.
Can I just ask on the venue, Peter? War Factory have been talking about like next year they hope to open the event up to be even bigger. Like they are talking like 200 people, a strong international contingent. They did mention, I think they posted on last week's video when we were talking about it being bigger, that they would like it to, like challenge for and become the new biggest event ever. Are you pretty sure that therefore it would have to move to a new venue? That venue can't go any bigger.
Actually, I actually just talked to one of the guys on our Polish group. So of course, they will have to move to another venue. So that would raise a price a little bit. But I guess for international players, it's absolutely it's absolutely okay. Probably you'll pay more like for the plane tickets or whatnot. And so yeah, I mean, for instance, like we had this event earlier this year. Like it wasn't very big, but the venue there was bigger than this one. So I think there is definitely a capacity like for a bigger event, just not at this place. And I think this is an intention. And they do want to attract next time international players. So as soon as there are details, I guess we will try to let you know, guys, and popularize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, this time I think not even everybody from Poland. Like I saw a wait list, so I think even in Poland, like 100 people were not enough, so the event was pretty much like booked out like a few months before going, which is non-typical like because for local events sometimes it's hard to find like I don't know, it's always less than 16 players. Pretty much 16 would be too much. So that was a really great surprise, and I am really happy that it was possible like to have such a big event.
Mm-hmm.
It strikes me that what if anything, this event has been very good for the Polish meta and the Polish scene, because I think what it probably has done, and speaking on behalf of you, Peter, and also the other Polish areas, is that we see a lot of Polish tournaments, and you said they're like getting to these 10 to 16 players, roughly speaking. They can get between those numbers. And all of a sudden, like 10 to 16 players in your play group coming out to an event is pretty good. That's a healthy sized local scene that you can play in, that's got games. You just take a couple of steps away and go, right, we're going to run a national event, and all of a sudden all of these groups of 10 to 16 players are all coming together, and so you can make 100 players nearly with almost ease, which is a bringing together of those 7, 8, 9, 10 groups which have all got decent player bases. It's a good thing for me, the way I see it, is that in the same way that the LGT worked for us, is that what you're going to see hopefully now is those like Team Balta now are going to go to Katowice or something like that, or Katowice, isn't it? Or they'll go to Katowice. There you go. Or they'll go somewhere else, right? And you'll suddenly get teams kind of traveling with each other, going, you know what? Why don't we go to Warsaw this weekend? And we'll go. There's a tournament there. We can play together. 4 or 5 of us will head down, and that suddenly that 16-player local event that you're talking about is now suddenly like, maybe we'll get 20 players or 25 players with some people coming over to travel.
Actually, that was happening from time to time. I mean, people were definitely aware of each other's existence. So I remember like a year ago, there were quite a few people going to Wrocław for their event. It was a bit bigger than what we had in Warsaw. What I think also happened is a lot of players who don't really regularly play at events were coming up there. So basically, like those players that play at home or just casually, but and wouldn't go like to, I don't know, regular events, but they would just come up for this event. So that was, I guess, also a good exposure for them to the scene.
There we go. Convenient picture.
All right.
And also,
it's me realizing I'm not the best Targaryen.
Oh, fair enough.
I realized it before when I lost the last game, so in a crushing. So
I like the inclusion of the laptop there, which I did see this picture earlier. For those of you who can't see this, I will actually zoom in on the laptop. This laptop really looks like it's been through the wars. Like it is. It really is a laptop that someone's just been. That'll do. Found it in a rubbish tip, and of course stats that you can clearly see on there as well. But yeah, no. Obviously, it looks fantastic.
Since you mentioned it, Peter, what caused you to switch to Targaryens? What was the plan, and how did it go for you?
Hero Box 3. So basically, my plan was, but the plan didn't work for me at all. Even in this, let's say in the positive way, because originally I was contemplating taking one list with dragons, and I was like, well, no, and then I realized there are like 20% Bara, and I was like, oh my fucking god. And then first 3 games I'm being matched to Baras, and I need to somehow like melt through their armor. But I was lucky because I never faced I was more in the context of Bara, I was more scared of Mel Casino. And I never faced it. Everybody played Renly into me, but it was still pretty challenging. Like the first 2 games were really sweaty. We went like into round 6 basically, and
I saw. You took a 1VP win over Susta, right? In a Barrow match.
Yeah, that was a super close game. Like basically. He's a great player, and it was really tough. Like we were basically like it was this here we stand, and I think we were scoring the same, and I think I was just like I killed 1 unit more. And it went down to scoring by points. So by the end of game 2, I was completely exhausted, and the first game was also super swingy, and super close. So yeah, the third game, despite it was a wipe, also like was pretty stressful because you need to do something with those champions of the stag. And I hated to do that because they were absolutely beautifully painted. But I had to do what I had to do. So basically, yeah. I didn't get a very good. This is the only thing I could complain about event realistically, is that first day I got 3 Baras, which I was blaming myself for not taking a dragon, and second day I got 3 free folks, and my plan was obviously to play Marsalan into them, and it miserably failed. Well, I'd say first game, this round 4 game. It's a little bit, I'm reminiscent of LGT. It was one of those games that I didn't have to lose, if you know what I mean, because I got greedy, but it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I lost 7-6, but I scored like 3 VP last round when I charged into mag, overran it, and killed the raiders and took the objective. But I'm bad at math, so it was 7-6, not 7-7. Yeah.
Strong self-par.
So Marsden was particularly your effort to take on Free Folk. I mean, the reality is that you lost twice. And the third game wasn't actually played, right? That was a resignation.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's list changes there that you can make, play changes that you can make, or is your response, it just didn't work, I still can't beat Free Folk?
So basically, like, one thing is, I think with Free Folk, I would say. I have a chance. I feel like I have a chance with either, obviously, Fire and Blood, or let's call it 3 objective scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And that because the first game with Free Folk, I would say I did mistakes. My opponent did mistakes. But I could have played it better, and it would have worked. I mean, game with Marsara, of course, I can't talk. Like, we still have to play it one day. Last game, I had absolutely 0 chance because it was 11 activation list with basically like with. Reborning, all those things that score no VP, and I have I can't basically I can control like at most maybe like 2 objectives realistically, and then he controls 3, and that's it. So I don't see like and it was Varamir actually, not Mans roster, and this is what makes me a bit pessimistic, because I expect Mans to be nerfed, and I think that would be a good thing. But in case of Varamir, I don't see like a good counter to it, frankly.
I will say this. I will say this, right? If we expect a nerf to Mans. I think we should expect Varamir to go to at least 3 points, rather than being what is effectively now what the old NCU commanders were, where it's an activation for free. Like, as it stands, if we assume Mance goes in the bin, right? Let's just assume he gets nuked.
Yeah.
Varamir's the obvious best choice, in the same way that NCU commanders were the best choice. And I think that if they didn't touch Varamir Commander, they would be kidding themselves that alone, like, that doesn't fix internal balance, never mind like external balance.
I don't feel they will do that, because historically they try not to fix recent releases. I don't. So therefore, this is why I'm pessimistic.
Mm-hmm.
About it, because actually, like, I think against Mans list I have a better chance. Maybe I think the original Swavex idea with Marcellin was to have initially 9 activation plus 2 from the cards, so he would go for 1 extra freedman. and then his favorite cutthroats and bastard girls, or you can maybe get another 7-point unit. Arguably, like you can go for pikemen maybe to hold an objective or something like that. I'm just like improvising, but I don't think that would help much against Varamir because basically he got like those 11 activations at the beginning of the game, while you only have 9 and can go to 11 if you're very lucky and if he lets you, and then he can bring the pets back, which is amazing. And you don't score anything for them. I think basically what could help against Free Folk is having for the raiders having the same rules as there are for pets or freedmen, that you can't score objectives with them. I think that could work, because then he would be forced to actually get something that scores, except Varamir.
Yeah, we could talk about changes all day, but I feel like it's a horse that has been flogged to death. But yeah, it's sad that Marcelin didn't bring anything that you thought might be interesting or that would work. And again, you know,
No, I think Marcelin is actually like against Nance. He could be good. I would say against Varamir, he's got no chance. Against Mans on 8 or 9 initial activations, I think it's a
game.
It's reasonable. Yeah. I mean, probably against again. Maybe I need you to do some mistakes. Okay. And play my A game.
Well. That too, right?
No. I mean, I played with Mickey. Like, probably I won't have. And also, like, I need a 3 objective, like a three objective scenario.
Yeah.
But just a few hurdles.
Just a few hurdles.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously Targs, and you know, a respectable, was it 4? Well, a 3 and a 2 and a non-game, so it counts as a 4 and 2, but you know, 4-2 and an unplayed, I guess, or 3-2 and unplayed. But yeah, I mean, respectable Targ. Didn't get best Targ, as that fell to a guy who ran, strangely enough, double Drogo, who had a very good event, going only 1 loss to what was a Free Folk, Podwis, who is the eventual winner of the event anyway.
So the best Targ and best what is it? And best Mortal actually only lost to Podwis. Yeah,
who was the best player, the best player/faction combo at the event. So yeah, which is, you know, that's pretty good going. If you're only losing, you know, if you're only ever going to lose to the eventual winner of the event, you can't be that unhappy, really. As things go. So yet again, I mean, we always talk about top 10. This time it was slightly less dominated, but it was still dominated by Free Folk.
No. It's not less dominated.
Slightly less, isn't it?
Okay.
Just the top 10.
Mance.
Yes.
Still wins the event.
Yeah.
And okay, the next 10 are all the 5 and 1s.
Yeah.
Right. And he's 40% of that.
Yeah.
He's 4 of those 10.
That's less than it was in GT, though, right? It's still dominant, but it's less. That's all.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's half as many entries.
Yeah.
So that's not that dominant. Only 9% of the entries are Mance.
Oh, sure.
40% of the 5 and 1s are Mance.
Well,
right? Whereas at the LGT, he was 16% of the entry, and he got about 70% the 6 and 1s, which actually works out as per entry basis. He was even more highly represented in the top bracket in Poland than he was at LGT. He
There was
just had
only-
a very, very small entry. He is less than 1 in 10 people are playing Free Folk.
Yeah, I mean, the one of the entries was a double Varamir, not a Mance, so...
Five people finish 5-1 or win the tournament. There are only 9 people who are playing Free Folk.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Like, it's not less dominant. It's more dominant.
Okay.
He had an even higher win rate. The faction had a 8% win rate?
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
Only 8.
Yeah.
68 at LGT, I think.
I think this is a thing we've said a lot, though, before. Generally speaking, if play rate goes down, win rate goes up, though, right? Generally speaking. Because it's only the...
Yeah, okay, generally speaking, but...
Like, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
There are 9 people playing Free Folk, and 5 of them end up
within the top 10, or 5 of them.
The top, or the top 10.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know, if you doubled their entries, you would be back to talking about the fact that there is only Free Folk and 1 or 2 other factions inside the 6-1, the 5-1 bracket.
So, I mean, what other factions were there? There was Night's Watch were up there, Lannisters, Targ, and Martell in the top bucket. I think Martell is not a surprise, to be honest. In my opinion, that we saw Martell's doing well. You know,
That's because so few people actually played them on the tournament, because from the hype, I expected everybody and their grandmother is buying Martell starter set. That's the only reason why I didn't.
Fair enough.
I'm waiting. I'm just waiting, like for the offers to come up, like unpainted, unplayed starter set, and you know, plus extras.
Yeah.
I mean, Martell had a completely 50% win rate. It's quite
which is very interesting.
Oh, sorry. Getting back to Marcellin list, basically the idea of it was also to be Martell counter, because it was having like this. I was having like a shooting unit there, and with Martells you want to keep them at the distance.
I've just seen the 0 and 5 that Obera Sand went.
Yeah, so it's actually really interesting. Oberyn and Harmon both did well. Abara did not. That their 50% win rate is nearly entirely down to Abara dragging them down, which is crazy. She's bad. Harmonella did fine. Oberyn did better, but played a lot less games. So I'm thinking that Oberyn is more of a tech list in the second choice than Harmon being the main list that people are going to be playing most of the time, just as a general theme there. Drogo still sporting a 57% overall. Kevin, 61% strong commanders. Obviously, Mance up at the top there at 77. No surprise. Varamir at 75%. Not really a surprise. But apart from that, there's nothing else. I mean, Jon Snow kind of salvaging his reputation a little bit with a 55%, which is a lot better than Jon Snow has done. I say historically, but recent history.
Jon isn't this powerhouse, right?
No.
Like, he's not even posting the 65, 70% that, like, basically, you know, is the region in which we're like, oh, this guy's making an impact on the tournament.
Yeah.
I think I already told my theory about Jon Snow as a commander performance.
Well,
which has to say about people who for whom it's the favorite character in the show.
Like it says, it could be one player playing Abara. I mean, it might be. We're not going to go and look specifically. There are 3 Abara entries. So I don't know if it's just one person playing them, but you know, like multiple people did enter with her. That part's for sure. Whether or not it was the same person who lost 5 games with her is another question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the Martell's part was interesting. There was a question further back, and I mean, I guess you might have a thought on it as well, Peter, since you are one of the people who was touting it and saying it was going to be amazing, and then you've switched away from it, which is that Adam Marbrand not making a wild statement on the tournament. Now, he was the majority played in the top finishing Lannister, so like there is some play there, but overall he's sitting at what 50 something, a 54% win rate.
I think it would be fair to say that he's the best in Lannisters. But yeah, I don't.
Well, he's the most played. Kevin's still posting higher win percent, up at 61 with a decent number of play rate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually comparable. Yeah.
Like the pair of them have helped revolutionize the faction. That is, completely obvious. They are some kind of pairing as like the new kind of thing to work around. Whether or not you definitely use both, pretty much, I've barely seen a single person who doesn't use one or the other of them at least, and that then be their main list instead of some kind of tech list. But you were using it at LGT. There was talk, a lot of chat from Poland about the fact that like Adam is the game breaker. Adam Warrior Sons has to be nerfed. There has to be talks about him being banned in certain areas or certain tournaments. House ruling it so that his personal hardened and the Warrior Sons' faith ability don't stand. So, I mean, did you find? Do you think that the Polish community have now just realised that was all overstated, or do you still think that it's under the surface, or like how do you feel that played out? Because to me, I was very interested coming in the LTG whether or not he would have that impact, but I was completely not surprised that this wasn't some crazy secret tech that actually is game breaking and nobody had figured out. Because to be really clear, because to me, like, that does not fucking exist, guys. Secret tech that people haven't figured out. Like, the game's not that complicated.
Usually it's.
In my opinion, this is something like, what is it? People, this is probably something like people complaining about expert duelist, basically, because I think Adam Marbrand is one of those things. I mean, if I were to put it to extreme, that would be the outflank, because this is something that you completely destroy a new player who's new to the game. But anybody, if you take it against anybody who is a little bit competent, it's just like you're a disadvantage. So it's to the lesser extent, I guess, just Lannisters without Kevin and Adam is a complete wreck. I mean, it's just like the only way they can come up with something, because their units are crap for their value. Like their Adam would have been OP if not the rest of the army wouldn't be such a crap.
Yeah, I mean, I still think he's a good choice. I just, I think
there's like one good NCU, Pycelle, which is a surprisingly top Lannister play isn't using. I don't know, like I haven't talked to him, but I'd be very interested why he would switch it to Cersei
in the Adam list.
Yeah.
Maybe he just doesn't feel that he needs the weekend against the Warrior Sons.
Yeah, maybe he wants to give
down.
I agree.
Yeah, like it's the perfect combo, because even, for example, like, forget thinking, it means that you can use your token. You don't even have to use your tokens defensively, and now it allows you to bring in an offensive dynamic as well, because you're constantly weakening your opponent. And but yeah, I just think that I hope Lannisters are doing fine. Like they're doing okay. Like particularly since Kevin and Adam came along, and there's Roose and there's Tyrion. There are actually 4 choices. We see different things. We see some people. There are a whole range of units that don't get
I
used.
still hate the design space
Yeah,
as an army.
this is actually the thing I was going to say, is that I think Lannisters are the last faction that I have, basically the last faction where I've really got to go through and play a lot of the commanders still. And one of the few things that I will say about looking at Lannisters and building Lannisters is that it doesn't, like, you don't look at their units and go, ooh, cool, how can I use this? You just kind of look at it and go, yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't fill you with interest, and that kind of sucks in that they're not interesting to look at, which I think is where you've said before, Carlo, right? It just isn't an interesting faction.
True, but it's weird because there are actually very varied play styles even within Lannisters. Do you know what I mean? Like there is cheap faith, there is expensive faith warrior sons who are actually very tough and grindy. Then there's panic based stuff. You can play flayed men and knights aggressively. But the problem is that most of them don't like have faction synergy. Basically, like basically it's anti-synergistic with themselves or with their own faction and their own deck.
I mean, Knights of Casterly Rock, like no witches, no IP. Okay, they work only because like you don't have like Swift Repo or something. They work only because you have like Tywin, so you can put the token disable abilities, and you have a Hear Mirror for spike damage. That's it.
It's, I guess the thing for me is
still
that
kind of not work.
Yeah, the thing is, you look at the package of what you can look at and you go, that's okay, but this is better elsewhere, or this is okay, but this is better elsewhere, and everything feels like it's just a worse version of something else, and then you bring it together and go, hey, at least it synergizes really well together, and it just doesn't, and you go, huh. So everything just feels, it's not bad, like this is the thing, they're not bad, they just don't, just doesn't feel good to bliss build with them.
Also, like you have this, like I think in Stark and Lannister, you have those too many 6-point units, which is completely opposite to Targaryen, where I have no 6-point units and no 5-point units.
Yeah. Wait, Stormcrow Mercs, right?
They are 7-point unit.
Yeah.
And Outriders are a 7-point unit too.
Ooh, I disagree there. I think Outriders naked are pretty good. But, Carlo, any last questions or?
Well, I mean, Ross says that if Mance gets nerfed, then Night's Watch will dominate again, and Belisarius says Night's Watch are overtuned. Look, they still came 2nd and 5th. Now, look, guys, like I'm not saying that Night's Watch need buffs, but how short a memory do we have? 2 weeks ago, Night's Watch were absolutely fucking shocking at the LGT. Now, yes, it's based on individual player performance and stuff like that, but they were nowhere to be seen at US Nationals, nowhere to be seen at LGT, and suddenly a couple of people do well with them. A couple of people. Faction still only just had a 50-something% win rate. Their most commonly used commander had a 55% win rate. This faction may be fielded by some people to be powerful, but it is not overwhelmingly strong. It is not overwhelmingly going to dominate the game as soon as Mance goes away. There is Martells and Baratheons and some Edge Lannister builds who actually can be quite nasty against really expensive
Hunter builds or something.
Like rangers with a captain, for example, right? Like they actually have the ability to just totally wipe that 10-point unit off the board and stuff like that. So guys, like, just have a longer memory, right? Like they're not that good. Like they are able to perform, but they are currently a very difficult army to build with, which is why I think that we see these top performing and low performing lists simultaneously within the faction, and a difficult army to navigate with as well. Because the things that are simple, and there are things that are simple within Night's Watch, things that are simple are not the things that are strong. It's the things that are have a lot of moving parts, hunters, captains, extra maneuvers, extra attack and bounce and move and do this. They are complicated things to be able to use well. And that's why the faction is like hit and miss. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't some lists within them that like can compete up at the top, but that is still. Oh, come off it! Second highest faction. Go fucking read a book, mate. 53, 52, 50. Like you're being facetious now, Kurt. Come on. It's 1% win rate better than the next one down. That's not.
It's not
and
enough.
It's 25% worse than Free Folk.
I mean,
to say that when Free Folk are gone, like this thing's going to be the new Terror when it's 1% better than the next highest thing is just no. Come on, I'm not having it, and I'm not like personally defending Night's Watch because that's what I'm currently playing, right? Like my mind's actually already on the faction that I'm playing after France. I've already decided where I'm moving to after that. And here's the specific thing. I slightly regret playing Night's Watch at France because I believe that the other faction is better. The faction that I'm moving to, I believe that is better. It took me longer to come to the decision and the idea and the concept that I think that the other faction is better. But I do not personally think that Night's Watch is the second best faction in the game right now.
Can I quickly ask you, Carlo, is that faction that you're moving to Baratheon by any chance?
Yes.
You're going back to
Baratheons, and I believe that Baratheons are better, not just in the general sense, but are better into the meta, better into what's available, better as an all-round pick, have better list options, better everything. I'm not going Greyjoys. Greyjoys are not better than... Okay, the list of things that are better than Night's Watch is not long, but they're not going to be terrors of the meta.
I really hope, just because you've said that now with such defining focus, that you're wrong. Just because you are so sure.
Yeah, I am so sure. I am so sure.
I don't know.
But back on point to Polish nationals before Peter goes.
Yes.
I'm not just trying to pick on you, Peter, but team
Piwnica?
Piwnica.
Piwnica?
Didn't do that well. I think it's actually the interesting result that came from it. Team Bolter really, really coming out strong, and also Katowice. Is that what you said the pronunciation is?
Katowice.
I mean, it says that the polls that came over to London the past couple of years aren't even the best polls, even though they came and stole all our trophies. So that's a scary concept. But and I know Slavek, the champion.
Best neutral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did go neutral.
Otherwise, of course, he would won again. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Slavek, he came in neutrals. Fair play to him. Well, well done. What did he go 4-2? I think
4-2,
with neutrals. But I do think that it's worth. Were you surprised at the strength of the other clubs? Like Team Bolter, they've come first, third, fifth.
I played with Podless like a year ago, I think, and I knew he's a great player. So it wasn't a big surprise, and you also can see him on stats. So yeah, like also player, also very nice person to play with, very fast player for free folk. Actually, this is what I want. This is something like I wanted to complain about because basically one thing is with Bara, we played until 10 points or turn 6, and it was enough. With Free Folk, last game, I look at the what was really cool about the event, that we have this like on the giant screen we had the time remaining. I see we have like 1 hour remaining out of 2. We are not finished with the first turn.
Yep.
So we even had this discussion to have a clock like for all players with 9 activations and more. Or 8 activation Targaryens and Free Folks. But in all seriousness, I know the main argument about clock is the beginner players. So basically, I know at the Warhammer LGT event, there was this basically like you can play on a clock when one of the players wants it. So you can play without a clock if both players consent to it. So I think that could be the best solution, because it's. I'm not saying that those players were slow or something, but it's just like I guess if you're playing a high activation army, you have to play faster. That is the only fair solution there. So I mean. I would love to have this option to maybe not have necessarily a clock, but to be able to put to a clock when I see I'm facing like an 11 activation army.
I'll look.
I mean, clocks are actually a little bit, or timing is a little bit on my mind. With France coming up next week, you know, I'm not hugely happy with their implementation, which seems to be basically like, if you think that somebody's playing slow, then you can request clock the rest of the game, basically. But at that point, like,
it has to be from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're already like, it's already too late. It's already past the point of it helping at that point.
And actually, which time to put on the clock? The remaining of the time divided by 2, or what?
That's what they're ruled.
Yeah, what's left divided by 2. Yeah.
That is weird. You just waste time until you put everything there, like get the clock. I mean.
Yeah. Which again, like the then mid game saying it's going slow, therefore we'll waste an amount of time mid game setting up a clock to then make sure that we progress the game. It wouldn't be a huge and I don't necessarily think that clocks like have to be implemented, have to be whatever. I mean, like I am relatively strongly of the opinion that they should be. But what actually really, you know, brings it to the forefront of my mind and my concern is that I believe once you get to the knockout stages of the tournament, if you don't complete 3 rounds, both players forfeit and lose. And it's like, how does that marry up with the clock, with a no clock, right? Like because one of the issues is 2 people on a clock can simultaneously both play slow and still only progress the game to round 2. But like, if we're not clocked, then how can you turn around and say it is the fault of one person? So
I enjoyed the implementation of the clock, but a thing that I would do differently, like compared to Invitational, is that I put all just like times of both players should sum up to all time available, and if we're playing on the clock, I don't want the judge to announce there are like 15 minutes left and not to start any new round.
That's that all comes down to implementation.
I don't want to. Basically, if we have the clock, I don't need like the 15-minute announcement. Maybe we have like 5 minutes for setting up. Objective tokens and creating a terrain pool if this is how you play it with. But then everything else could be on a clock. So for instance, we have like 5 minutes for setup, and then everybody gets 1 hour, and we play for 2 hours total. So there is this little gap, but I think I would be happy with that, because basically, if you can play on the clock, nobody went overtime, and you still have to end your game prematurely, it kind of like eliminates the idea of the clock. It kind of still not solves the problem. So that would be the difference in my implementation.
I mean,
Anyway,
I hope come France that
yeah.
I will be able to just request that my opponent uses the clock. Assuming, like, if we have to get to round 4, then otherwise we both lose. Then I think it's a big concern for me, and not to just like beat on them, but against high activation free folk, because the army is inherently slow, and the issue is inverse to the whole discussion about how Martels need the game to go long. Martels need XYZ to be fully realized in how powerful they are. Free folk are at their most powerful early game, and their opponents always need the game to go long for them to ever have a chance. Because early on, the free folk will just dominate the objectives, and if they know there's only X amount of time left, and all they have to do is not lose in the next however many minutes, they can then feed you insignificant units, force them to be the only things that you can kill. And yes, insignificant is not wildly powerful, not wildly whatever, except when you know that if you just block with insignificant units, there is no way that your opponent can win. Like, it's like, yes, the game might not only be decided by one victory point, but if you know for sure that even when your opponent like charges in, gets wildly explosive dice and blows up a unit, they still don't score for it, then you can play very differently. And yeah, so I mean, it's on my mind. So yeah,
nerfs free folk.
I mean, I think it's. Obviously, I am biased, right? But I don't think it's the faction, and I don't think it's the activations are always going to make you take longer because there's more things on the board. So therefore, having more activations always means the game will take longer to play. I think that's just objectively true. But I do think that if players aren't finishing, round 5 with free folk, then the simple fact of the matter is they're just slow. Like, you should reasonably get to the end of round 6. I don't actually think getting to the end of round 6 in 2 hours is as reasonable as people once think that it was, because 6 rounds in 2 hours is 20 minutes a round.
Plus setup, plus 1 minute.
Yeah, plus setup and everything. And that's 20 minutes per round isn't actually that long. And the games will nearly always, like, because we've talked about it before, right? Slower scoring games, this, that, and the other. Games that don't have like a clear winner in the early game will typically go to round 6 because the scoring is so low. And I think that actually 2 hours for a 6-round game is not that common, especially when we look at like good high-level play at all. And that's not because players are slow. It's simply that the game just isn't that quick. If you just said 2.5 hours, I'd have said, yeah, that's easily enough time. But I think at 2 hours, you really are pushing it a little bit. That being said, the fact that free folk players are not getting to the end of round 3 in 2 hours, that's on the players. Sorry, but it is. So yeah.
I never went to basically like my games ended at round 3 or 4 with free folk, so
which is pretty bad.
Yeah. In one case, I guess in the last game it wouldn't make difference. I would still lose a crush-in. In the first game that I lost, I mean, I understand that he could have played differently, and it was, don't get me wrong, it was still a great game. I really enjoyed it, but it would have been a very different game, and he would have made like different decisions, and it could have gone either way. So yeah, I would love to have for the chess clocks to have a higher acceptance rate.
I generally agree. All right then, Peter. Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm glad you enjoyed it. And
I did.
and we will see you again probably at some point in the future, if not in London.
I hope so. Take care, guys, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Yep, see you later, buddy. Right then. I'll quickly readjust Carlo's face. But Carlo, one thing that I was going to mention but thought not of mentioning, and it is on the topic of there we go. It is on the topic of Poland, and it is something that you said last week, and actually something that I'm now disappointed by. Right? Is we'll have a look at Podwis's lists, and we'll have a look at specifically the final that was played. Podwis versus Sejic, both playing Mance. Podwis's list that he used is this one here. It's Mance, Trappers, Free Foot Raiders with Tormund, Raiders with Champion, Frozen Shore, Varamir, Val, Krusty, Ygritte. And Sejic used Trappers with Mance, Trappers, Raiders with Tormund, Raiders with Champion, Chariot, Varamir, Val, Krusty, Ygritte. It is a literal, exact copy, and it gets worse. Not only is it an exact same list, it is literally carbon copied, and it is the list that I've been running. I've spoken to Podwis before the event. He talked about what lists, both of the lists he entered are the two lists that I used to have. So he's got the Harmer variant and the non-Harmer variant at 10. And he asked me how you'd use them both and so on and so forth. But what I'm disappointed by now, and I know that you must side angry about, is that we are literally seeing net listing basically happen now. Like, it is.
Well, net listing is happening there because it's successful.
Oh yeah, agreed completely.
Which shows that list is not hard to run. It is not hard to field. It's not hard to play. Not complex. It's not difficult to win with.
And people are just
like net listing only exists and works if something is obscenely powerful, because otherwise you wouldn't understand the intricacies. You wouldn't be able to understand the list. You wouldn't be able to perform with it to this level. Yes, you might be able to net list and beat your local friends who just have bad lists, but like,
my only problem with it, and this is where I kind of feel a bit dejected is probably the wrong word, but kind of annoyed or frustrated by it, is that I feel that the players aren't, and it's a personal feeling, and it's nothing that is, oh my god, that's a real problem for the game. But people aren't actually understanding or discovering why the list is what it is. At least Jacob, with his inclusion, swapping out the Champion of the Bone and the Raid Leader, he played the list a lot. He changed the list. He tried to make it better. And then when he basically decided that he couldn't make it better, and he went back to using it. But it feels that he played the list in an attempt to understand and make it better. Whereas we are seeing here now, and I think it's more commonly, as we've said there, it's not even this, I'll play it and see if I can make it better. It's literally, I'll just copy it and play it. And I just think that's disappointing, because for me, it's like, you are right in saying that doesn't take much skill. I'm not saying Podwis isn't a skilled player. He evidently is, look at his rating on stats. But it doesn't take skill or time or effort or anything to take a list, copy, paste, play it. And that's just a shame.
Well, it does if the list is difficult to play.
Yes, yeah, right. But
So if a list is powerful because it's complex and has nuance and has counter meta picks and and is part of a 2-list combo that only works as a 2-list combo, then net listing falls apart. But if the list is just the most powerful thing in the game and 90% of it has written itself and there's only 10% of it left that really can even be changed, like without to like any obviously, pretty good player, only 10% of it is even considered a flex, then like, well, just copy it anyway. Like, do you know what I mean? Just copy that 10%. Like the 90%, I was going to use that 90%. I was going to work out what I was going to do with the last 10%, and he does really well with that 10%. So copy that bit. And it's just like, well, yeah, it's just the best thing in the game. So like, it just works. You just put it on the table, it works. It's obviously powerful. It obviously does these things. It obviously, if you happen to come up against somebody else using exactly the same list, will determine just whether or not we both know it as well as each other, and whether or not we both know some nuance of it, which the mirror match will always determine to some part. But a mirror match will also determine a large part, like who drew better, who got better cards in the right order. In that matchup, like specifically, if one person like just has Endless Horde at the start and the other one doesn't, and doesn't have long plan and doesn't have XYZ, do you know what I mean? Like, the game can just be way harder for one person than the other.
Fair enough.
Yeah, like, and I mean, like, Ross asked earlier when I said, like, the game's not that complicated. There aren't these secret hidden things. Like, I mean, no. He asked whether or not one of the games would be more complicated. No, I mean, it doesn't need to be more complicated, but like, the running of the list, like, should be the difficult part. I think that the game has dumbed down significantly, either just from the way the community plays, but I believe that's driven by changes in the game since we stopped seeing two list formats, which were side A and side B of any given coin. It's why I am so adamantly against double of the same commander. Because if you literally can't write a second list which complements the first list in different matchups, different missions, different whatevers, then there's something wrong with list A. Something wrong with it because it's either two all-comers and not that strong, B, it is so powerful that there's nothing else in the game that's worth even complementing it. And that is pretty much the case for Mance, Drogo, maybe John. But like, I still contest that John's not that good. Like, I still contest John's not that good. Part of the reason why people don't do that well with John is that they don't complement him with a different commander. Like, they could and should be complementing John with something that helps shore up. Like, because he's not strong into everything. He is actually like quite a specific skill set, and he could be stronger in a two-list format. I don't believe that John is the best pick. Here we have second place John Offal, but at the same time we have fifth place John. So like, it's not that straightforward. But yeah, I mean, I'm not like not wildly against net listing, right? Like,
No.
I'm against it in that the site is entirely built. Podwis has scored the least possible ELO, the least possible reward that it is possible to get at all while winning 6 games by using Mance twice, double Mance. Like, there is no smaller reward that you can possibly receive, right? So the site is already built to not reward that. It doesn't reward it because all evidence suggests that winning with Mance is not an achievement. And so back at the start of the edition, when things were still in flux, being the person who was creative and inventive and created the Mance list, who made him powerful, who popularized him, was rewarded with ELO because he was not massively rated then. But if you copy and come second, you don't get the ELO reward because he is already out and out massive favorite in every game. So if that's what you choose to do and you choose the net list, you don't get rewards from it. If you choose to be creative, you choose to anti-pick the meta, or when the meta's first in flux and being created, you are the person who can figure it out the fastest and win with stuff, which isn't yet known to be dominant. Then you'll earn way more ELO, and that's the part of like ELO that people just like don't really like understand. And you know, like it's so much more than win rate. It's creativity, it's skill, it's understanding of the game. It's so many things that isn't just like what's your percentage win rate.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. No, I agree. But you know.
What I mean, so there's nothing more that we can do as a community other than to barely even mention the fact that he won. You know, like obviously we had Peter on and we were discussing Peter's experience, but like it's passing mention. I think it's more of an accolade how Team Bolter did as a whole, rather than how Podwis himself did.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to look through his games, right? Like, I mean, there's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, like
it is what it is.
Great, you know, like, and that personally, I even think that we're past. Other than the fact that, like, I took large issue with you saying that Mance was less dominant or that Free Folk were less dominant here. We're hardly even going to discuss the fact that they were dominant. You know, like that's just a given at this point.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I'm not. So... yeah, I just purely meant within the top 10, but. Yeah, win rates. The win rates
again,
are what they are.
Like I say, they were more overly represented in the top 10.
Yep. As a percentage of their entry. Yeah.
As a percentage of their entry, which always has to be the discussion, right? Like,
yeah, I agree.
People... Yeah. So like, I mean, what can you do though? Like, what can Free Folk even do? Like, their other lists are basically kind of shit. Like. All their units that are good are basically in the 4-point category. You've got a few flex points here and there. That means that basically like 36 of your points are already spent. The question is, do you force in a 10th 4-point option, or do you flex 4 points out of the entire list? 10% of it gets to be spent on something else, turning an NCU from 4 points to 5 points, making one of your 4-point units a 5-point unit, buying a 2-point attachment instead of a 1-point attachment. That's the only 4 points that you ever really spent in Free Folk.
Yep.
And yes, it could be Raiders or Trappers or a Chariot, but I mean,
I mean, this is how I've talked about.
Choices
I've literally spoke about that's how you build list Free Folk since day one. Because the moment you drop down to 8, except Mag at 9, like everything else, maybe 1-1, but even 1-1's not good. Everything else is just not that good in its point category versus the stuff you're going to face.
Whereas when we're talking about Night's Watch, you're talking about you got to weigh up now. Like
hey mate,
Watch Captains are still very, very good, but like you're talking about like, do I add more wounds to the board? Do I add whatever? You're talking about Baratheons. You're talking about like, am I at 6, 7, or 8 activations? That's like a huge, wildly different, like even like conceptual thing to your list building.
In
like,
Baratheons,
30 of your points are in flux, right? Like you've probably only shoehorned like 32 points of your like list are in flux. Maybe you could say, you know, the first 8 points are spent on 2 NCUs. Another 8 points, maybe these days, are nearly always spent on Champions of the Stag. Maybe,
yeah. I think it would be.
Maybe the first 16 points are spent for you.
No,
next 24 points could be like anything. Could be anything in the game, right? Like
Stanicide doesn't even do that though. Like you don't even go stat Champions Stag with Stanicide necessarily. Like
exactly. Like, and I mean, so
yeah,
it's just it's a factional. What I'm trying to say is this net listing approach here. It's a factional balance issue. It's not a net listing problem.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I will say that this though, I've been playing a lot of Night's Watch this week, getting all of their stuff done. And Night's Watch list building, just like Targ list building, Night's Watch list building is just sad. Because the actual best thing that I think, after picking a commander and after choosing what unit the commander goes in, that I think the commander uses best. I think that the next best thing to add to the list is almost universally Watch Captain with Ranger Hunters. And that sucks. It sucks that you just look at it and go, that's probably just the best thing I can add.
It's a good choice, but I disagree. And I mean, then they're not revealed, but like neither of my lists include Rangers with a Watch Captain.
Mm-hmm. And Watch Captain.
So, like, I'm putting my money where my mouth is there. Yeah. Like, I disagree. I don't use that unit. I don't build that list.
Which is fair enough. I mean, we had a little look at the data because I did want to mention this because it is telling. But ELO, obviously. Oh, this is stupid doing it this way. Type in unit first. We've spoken before about Watch Captains being a very high-rated component in the game, the highest rated attachment. And it is even scarier when you look at their win rate of nearly 57%, right? Which is not that high, but then we look at the Night's Watch overall win rate and it's 51%, and it's like there's a 6% difference between those two things. Which Watch Captains really do. Like, I firmly believe that Watch Captains are propping up Night's Watch's performance.
No, I heavily use Watch Captains, right?
Yeah,
like, I'm not out here saying, oh, neither of those things are good.
No.
But I actually think that when you get deep into Night's Watch, Ranger Hunter Watch Captain is such a predictable 10 points that has such a wide range of counters in the meta currently that you have overinvested that 10 points. And into the meta, it's not a great pick. Like, the meta has the combo is powerful, such that the meta has come and meet it. The huge use of traps, the existence of
Champions of the Stack,
auto hits that basically are really going to punish that 5-up save, and things that punish aggressive units which have huge volume dice output but don't have am I using your Dario list? No, not quite, though. It was interesting. I did think about it for a while.
Oh god, I know that one. You're an idiot.
Yeah, I actually forget. What was it? It was Dario in crossbows because he gives motivated by coin.
And then a bunch of Stormcrow mercs are set with Watch Captains, basically.
No, was it? No,
there's that one which is like
Swarm Bros and stuff in it, didn't it?
I can't remember. There's one that's just like a mass of Stormcrow mercs with Watch Captains in the hopes to drive up an activation limit, and then it's like one good unit at the end.
Yeah.
And then there is the Dario with Swarm Bros and stuff in it.
Well, I'll show my lists after France, and we'll see how I do.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I mean,
I still think that one of them's bad, but like, you know, surprisingly, it doesn't have any Watch Captains in, and I think the list is bad, but like, I think it might do fine. I did play it recently, and it actually did really, really well. I was surprised. It absolutely slapped Adam Warrior Sons around. Like, it has a place, and like, I built it specifically to have, like, I don't think the list is in isolation any good, but it's built to it's built to complement my other list. It's built to round out the pairing. It's built to add to the dynamic, and that's the thought process. Do you know what I mean? And I want, you know, like, I can be wrong, and I will die on the sword of doing it, but I have to believe, and have to want to show, and have to be a player who thinks that two lists that are actually complementary and support each other is the best way that this game can be played tactically.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. I might as well just say it now. Obviously, with the world's spot up for grabs, I'll be taking Free Folk again to France. because there's a reason to win the event. If that wasn't the case, I literally just got my last couple of boxes of Greyjoys arrive this week. So I now actually I've been playing a lot of Greyjoys in person at the club, and certainly post France, depending on what happens there. But post France, I expect to be playing a lot more Greyjoys as the new thing that I actually want to play, because there's no point if you do it free folk. What's the point? And I haven't been playing free folk at all online at all. But yeah. Right then. On that note, there was another event at the weekend I did want to show people, which was not this one. This one, hey, with Brian. I think it's Brian's lovely painted Makoro on it. We won't spend long on this, but this is Rimble Rumble, which is somewhat of a staple on the northwest part of the UK circuit. It's a relatively small event, 14 players with this one, but it is a good fun. It's all about going along and playing lists that perhaps aren't. It's not an ELO event, but it encourages thematic list building and just a general good day out, basically, over the 2 days.
Yeah. That's what makes the event kind of significant, despite its player numbers, is that it is 5 rounds and it is, a 2-day event. And congrats to Lord Robbo for winning the event, but mostly congratulations. You see his combo there, Drogo and Danny. But actually, people say, I ran Drogo a lot. He ran Drogo day 1 and Queen of Marine day 2. And the Queen of Marine list looks like it was actually better in that it was pretty emphatic, the wins with the Queen of Marine list. Two crushings, including a 10-2 over Stee with Queen of Marine. And the reason I want to mention this is that Queen of Marine, double Unsullied Swordmasters and Rhaegal, completely just pushing it to the limit. Nice list.
It's fun. It looks like a fun list to play.
What's Rhaegal again? Rhaegal is vulnerable?
Right?
No, weaken guy. Yeah. It's Viserion is vulnerable, isn't it?
Yeah, he's weakened. Yeah, Viserion's.
Yeah.
Great, I love it. He ran Walder Frey as well, which is just hilarious. Walder Frey and Pirate Pre running the 6-slot.
No, now you've lost me. No, I'm not on board anymore.
6-slot things. He ran a Drogo list with double streamers. Man's got balls. All right then. Yeah. So that was the event that went on. Well done there to Andy and all the various other players, including Tim, who I know has been absolutely bashing out neutrals of late. With his lovely painted.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is Pirate Pre Walder Frey. So
yeah, it is.
Basically, you're always going to get Walder to the board, which
is something.
And when you've got three units, any of which, if they're engaged, taking an extra attack that your opponent didn't expect at the end of the round. Yeah, okay.
We also had Adopticon finish up, and I believe that it was Mikkel who won the Greyjoy Mirror, which, as much as I think Larks is a great guy and I love the guy, but I think it would be pretty silly to think that that Mikkel would be beaten in his own backyard, and he wasn't. Mikkel won the game and took the event as well, stealing out from Naktalb's fingers. So Mikkel, Naktalb, and then Tom Tyler is the top 3. But yeah, lots of other players up there. Bob coming in 4th, Dwan in 5th, and Larks down in 6th. All the players that we know of and heard of online anyway. Cool.
Congrats to Mikkel. I'm sure that hammer will be really cheap and easy to post over to Spain.
Lol. All right. We also have now, I guess, to talk about the FNC. Which there aren't lists revealed yet. They get revealed tomorrow. Hooray!
On Wednesday, maybe? Or is it tomorrow?
Yes, I think it's tomorrow. I think it's 25th.
No, yeah, it might be tomorrow, 25th.
25th.
I mean, the reason for that is like you can still sign up. far as I know.
Yes.
You can still join the tournament. So if anybody still wants to come to Bordeaux this weekend, then
you can still sign up.
Why not?
Sign up closes tomorrow, which I think is a bit of an odd one because they've already done list lock.
Yeah, it is slightly odd. I don't quite understand what they're trying to achieve there.
I think it's just they're trying to get last minute numbers up, maybe.
Yeah, but like actually, they've said that for a while. Like, so I don't know why the lists are locked. Is the question. Like, I don't know what they're doing in the interim, but clearly they don't want people to change their lists in the interim. But it has created a slight situation where, like, you would, in some regards, if you knew you were always going and you knew that you could sign up to this date, you might as well have not signed up until this date because it would allow you to continue to play test and change your lists up until this date. Now, in reality, that basically doesn't happen because nobody's going to risk it leaving that late because they might not be allowed to sign up. And B, nobody actually play tests their list until they have to at the last minute anyway. So it's kind of a moot point. But like, I know that like some people, like in our chat, and for example, like some people have mentioned that like basically they feel like we're locked in and other people aren't. Mm-hmm. But I don't. Maybe again, it's that like the French community aren't super familiar with the site and stuff like that, like because the site already ensures that the lists are legal outside of like restrictions around they're not allowing martels and they're not allowing
self-imposed restrictions.
Yeah, self-imposed restrictions. So I don't know if like they feel like they need the time to manually check the lists or whatever, but which is a lot of work for like 90 people, 2 lists over. That is 180 lists that have to be checked. So it's not the usual way that people use the site, but then like the French community are very much like they have their own way of doing things, and they believe that that's normal, and because it is normal for them, and all their events run in that way, and they're all the same, and so for them, everybody else is wrong.
It might just be they locked because it wasn't even this weekend, right? They locked last weekend.
Yeah.
So in terms of like putting them in, it might just be a case where they wanted to go through and check them all, and they did want to make sure there was nothing there. They maybe did want to have anything else sorted out for them, basically. Maybe they might even be printing them off. I don't know. Which is fair enough if they are.
Speaking of which, like just today, asked Leap Teddy if he could print some cards off for me. Tournaments are always the thing that finally make you sort shit out that like you've just been not. I've been playing with old tactics cards forever, outdated season 1 stuff. So.
Mate, do you know what I've been doing all week relating to France? Sat here. No. Passport sorted. I would show it on camera, but that would be terrible. So there's a little corner. Look, it's blue. I've been sat here worrying that I've been looking at my models thinking, are they going to allow me to take magnets on carry-ons? Why? Like, surely they will. They're not strong enough. Like, nothing magnetic or anything like metal outside of the pull on these things is so minor that it wouldn't. But it did make me wonder, are they going to let me have all these magnets on the plane? Which...
You're not the only one that crossed. I mean, I didn't think, are they going to let you? My thought was, I think there's a decent chance that when this goes through the scanner, it is randomly selected to be checked.
Same.
So that might be a whole load of time and security thing. So, by the way, this bag is full of plastic miniatures for a game, and yes, there are magnets attached to this, but it's not electronics.
So thankfully, this is where I have the positive because I'm taking my cookie things with them in. Like, you don't even have to check it. You could quite literally see, oh, it's a miniatures. So if they ask after that point, yeah.
Yeah, and definitely don't say the BOMB word when
God, yeah.
It's not a BOMB. Wait. So that'll definitely get people nervous.
Otherwise, me and Carlo will be sat on check-in as with our bags, peeling magnets off units. So yeah.
Nah, just go home.
No, not worth. Weekend out in Luton. Let's go. Right. So that's FNC. Nothing else really to say about it. Someone said, Carlo, I don't know if you saw, but I think you did. But someone said that they thought it would be good if all of the Mance players, or what they call nag lists in French, which is like the lists that people doesn't want to see, like the good list in the game, if they should all be lumped together in the first round or like in their own separate tournament, which I thought was just kind of ridiculous in that it doesn't fix any problems and is yet again something that I think a lot of people seem to not want to do, which is not accepting of what the balance is. They're trying to say the balance is like completely fine if we just ban this thing or something like that, and it's like, well, the balance includes that thing. That thing is a problem, everyone agrees, but just saying it cannot exist is not the same thing. Yeah, I don't know. People trying to fight the balance rather than accepting it. I don't
know. There's everybody has their own idea. This is actually the issue, which is everybody has their own idea of what they would do to fix it, and no matter what you did, you won't make everybody happy. So, like, I mean, it's a crazy, silly idea, but like, so are so many. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, so many of them are silly ideas. Like, in my opinion, house ruling Adam to not stack with Warrior Sons is a silly idea. Like, but to somebody it made sense, and to the point where maybe to a whole store or community of players or whatever, like maybe they didn't all agree with it, but like the majority of them agreed with it. To those people it wasn't a silly idea. But like, there are as many opinions as there are players, so that's why I can never ever condone community-based balance. Like, community-based balance doesn't exist. Like,
not unless it goes about it in a formal way. It does like an ETC style thing and says, "Look, we're going to create a new version of the game."
I still don't. I am still adamant that doesn't work either.
I think it does work. It's just that I don't think it's a positive thing, right? I guess that's the difference for me. Because ETC does have a lot of popular following in certainly Europe. Like, it's a massively popular system for 40k, to the point where basically ETC is now competitive 40k, right? Because they kind of like merged it. But that just simply won't happen for this game, and the game isn't in a state where it can allow, like we've discussed before, for a fracturing of the game. That wouldn't be good. But yeah.
Willard asks if we're going to look at the Martel preview he's posted on Frontline Gaming. Me and Mickey don't consider it news because I'm actually a little bit confused about this. It has been public information for a very long time, right?
No, but yes. It has been information that has been out there, but I don't think anyone's
not like
actually
public, not as in like confirmed, but like the stats that have been posted here in this article have been banded around the internet for weeks and weeks and weeks.
I believe so.
Like a month or so, these have been known for. This was news a few months ago.
So here's the interesting thing. I think that they have been known, but I don't think anyone's actually talked about them. And that's the difference. So it might have been a case where only people who knew, and nobody thought. I
don't trust them. Like,
exactly.
Like,
they're not gods.
And not because, I don't. Not that I don't trust Parley and this article, or that I don't trust something on Frontline Gaming or whatever. Like, I don't know the exact source, But that in itself means that I don't really trust it because I don't know the exact source. And even if I did know the exact source, I still wouldn't trust it. And yes, there are inconsistencies, but very, very tiny inconsistencies with what's here, particularly the 4+ to hit, which is on those Starfall Knights. Is almost definitely.
It says 3+
to
in the article now.
Okay, so that's already been edited.
May have been edited.
But, yeah, okay. Yeah, this is maybe the most public it's been made. But yeah, I mean, I had this discussion about whether or not I thought they were any good a long, long time ago, and then forgot about it straight away because I actually think all the units are pretty forgettable. Plus, I don't believe them until they're actually they're very believable. Like none of them are like, oh my god, holy shit, that's busted. I think some people think that those Sand Vipers are very good at 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
June Vipers. But I mean, like the Knights are like entirely comparable to Flayed Men with a slightly different stint on like what you want, but for 8 points, you're exactly in the region of like, do I take Flayed Men in or Tully Cav? Do I take Flayed Men or Knights of Castle Rock? Do I take Flayed Men or Starfall Knights? Meh, whichever one you want, really.
I think Starfall Knights will probably win out, but because they're movement 6.
Yeah.
And that's worth trading.
They have a place, and that's all we can hope for. At that value, we're not like, oh, they're wildly better than Flayed Men, which we would be talking about it being an issue if we thought that they were, because Flayed Men are already plenty good enough in themselves. They're possibly slightly worse, but they have a place because they actually do something slightly different.
8 points long.
It doesn't like lots of people that know about it, so I guess it wasn't as widely known as. I mean, I assumed it was on the main Discord. Like, I honestly don't check it anymore. I assumed it was in Starfall or whatever. Is the Martell channel called Starfall?
Sunspit.
Sunspit. Yeah, but the units are a bit forgettable. We'll see whether or not that's what they actually are on arrival. I have no real clue of where the actual source has come from. Maybe coming to somewhere in November.
Yeah, maybe.
Is a date that I've seen banded around, but again, maybe somewhere in the world in November. But
at least
I'm not banking on it being in the UK.
At least we can take this small part and say that they do look nice, the June Vipers. I quite like those models.
The renders are widely known, right?
Yeah, the renders are, yeah.
The renders are definitely widely known.
But they're quite nice models.
That people are a bit surprised that they're being banded about.
There was another more, I think some people say, more interesting image taken. And before anyone asks, no, the cards have not been revealed. Don't ask about the cards. And this was in Poland. This was Hero Box 3 and Hero Box 4 from Baratheons. Hero Box 3 on my side of the screen, over here, with Stannis mounted, who looks pretty good, and things like Patch Face and stuff. And then over on Carlo's side, you've got Baratheon Heroes 4, which is the infamous Renly's.
Renly.
Yeah. Renly's Baratheon banners. Sorry, Renly's Kingsguard. Sorry, Renly's Queensguard. Sorry, Knights, Rainbow Knights. Oh, who gives a shit? Them guys.
Yeah. And Lady.
And Lady, yeah.
Stannis, it's probably just the angle, but he looks like he's got this weird chunky head. So I want to see what that actually looks like.
That also might be the potato cam.
yeah. But yeah, Patch Face is the real Chad of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there are some people have been saying that the Rainbow Guard are basically going to be near identical to Kingsguard. It makes a lot of sense that they would. Even got the same banner setup, as in near identical models. I assume basically the only thing changed is actually that it's no, it doesn't even need to be a change to be a stag on. It's
literally the same models, I assume.
Actually, literally might have the Baratheon banners rule, like they might actually both share that identical worded rule. And yeah, I was aware that he's wearing a crown if you look really carefully, but it still makes his head look like really square.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whether or not that unit's going to be any good really depends on like whether or not. See, I still think that the Kingsguard are good, right? Like as a unit, but Joffrey now carrying the 2 VP tack and having shit cards is not worth it for the full complete package.
Yeah.
So if Renly can avoid that fate, this could still be a very good, maybe 6-point unit. But Carlo, Renly traitor fan. Yeah, I thought it was well known that I'm a Renly fan, though. To be honest, I am more and more with the most recent releases and the way the faction plays and the things that's going on. I'm more and more leaning towards playing Stannis a lot more often.
Because Stannis side is better.
Because Stannis side is better, yeah, and the Renly side, like, not the Renly specific stuff is not performing what it's supposed to do on the table, basically. So you basically end up being like few characters plus like generic wardens and stuff like that, like, and so you're not really like a Tyrell army at all. Anyway.
The only thing I can hope for on these 2 boxes, right? And I can hope for a lot of things, to be fair, but there is one thing that I really want to hope for, and that is, can they finally top Brienne Neutral Hero Box 2 sculpt in Brienne the Blue the Third or whatever?
Brienne 3.
Brienne 3. Do you think Brienne 3 is finally going to top that sculpt, or is another sculpt going to take over what? I don't say it's widely accepted, but I think a lot of people would say that Brienne in Neutral Hero Box 2 is one of the best sculpts in the game.
I don't think that Brienne is necessarily going to top Brienne, but
no.
Well, I mean, I already think that Cold Hands is
pretty damn good. Yeah.
Right, like I prefer Cold Hands.
I think as a solo Stannis. Like cavalry. Yeah.
Okay, well, I was about to say Stannis could well, Stannis, I haven't seen Stannis could well be like the new Giga Chad model. Everybody's going to have a soft spot for Patchface, whether or not he is actually that good of a model or not. Like everybody's going to have a soft spot for it.
Yeah, agreed.
Modern sculpts are all really, really great, and I do actually think that the 8 Kingsguard models that you get are brilliant. Whether or not these 8 Rainbow Guard models are just as good. If they are just as good, they already look like they have more individuality than the 7 Kingsguard models. Yeah.
Who are you? I don't know. Check the back of my cloak. I might have something there. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Like that is the only fault of the Kingsguard, which is that like you have Selmy, you have Jamie. Is there anybody else super noticeable? I forget now. Might just be those 2. And then
one
the next
more, right?
The next 5 are very subtle as to whether or not they're a certain person or not. That doesn't stop them, or they are all individual. They are actually all got unique bits of their armor, unique bits of cloak, unique bits of this and that. And if you look closely, it is still nice, but it's a bit understated as to who's who and a bit unobvious. Whereas these look far more obvious as to who's who. I think there's a lot of people without helmets on. A lot more difference between them.
And Carlo, let's just take a moment. You'll be a very happy man at this, and I know that Dan will be a very happy man at this as well. What hand are they holding their swords in?
In the right.
Yes!
Thank God.
No more left-handed people, which, is, just way better news. All right, then. So that was a picture that's seen. Again, no cards have been seen, so there's not really much to talk about outside of that.
But surely somebody's seen them.
Somebody has seen them, definitely. This information doesn't say secret long. War Games PL probably have seen them, because they'll probably be doing the Polish translations. That, and somebody took them out of the box before putting them on display. I
I think it's
Yeah, go on.
without like flogging a dead horse. I think it's very interesting and very telling that Wargames PL are a professional company who I can only assume have an official contract and are paid distributors or make money out of distributing on an official capacity with an official agreement with Simon, and there has never been a leak from them. And instead, there's a ton of amateur playtesters, amateur whatever the fucks they are, yeah, and the game was plagued by leaks, right? Like, if when people are professionals, like these things don't come out because for a start, like it's just your professional job. Like, I mean, when I go to work and then like when I go to work, I'm not that interested in my work. It's my work, right? Like nothing's gonna make me go like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna go to Facebook and start posting about this stuff that I've just seen. Like,
I'm sorry,
you know,
Carlo,
like,
but when do you ever go to work?
yeah. But like this is the thing. Like even like people who have like a periphery, you know, kind of like interest in it. You know, like say for example, like Stat were to book with another company that wasn't Song for a game that I just didn't care about, and they were like, okay, we're gonna have to like give you all this stuff ahead of time. I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm gonna go leak it to the community because like I don't even play that game. Do you know what I mean? Like why the fuck would I care? Like, do you know what I mean? Like if because you know, here's the hypothetical that will never exist. Say Games Workshop are like, hey, here's all the 40k stuff that's coming out next month. Like, get the app ready to be ready to update it. You know, like the War Council equivalent. The guy who makes War Council isn't going out there and leaking the War Council assets.
No.
Because the guy who makes War Council, I honestly don't know who it is. I really still can't work out if it's in-house or not. It's just his job, and he probably doesn't even play Song, and he probably doesn't give a flying fuck what the models are, or what the assets are, or how many points a unit costs. So why would he go and leak it? It's the usage of people inside the game on an amateur level that leads to all the leak problems that we had however many years ago. And leaks just like even you know, this is kind of in respect of like, you know, the discussion around that Martel article and stuff like that. Like leaks just aren't that interesting to me, even though I'm really interested in the game, because until it arrives, until it's actually confirmed as the legit thing, I am still a bit like, meh, might not even be true.
Yeah,
No point getting upset about it.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Like, someone says a leak's damaging, or are they good, or are they bad? They're a bad thing, but not because leaks themselves are necessarily bad, right? They're bad because the company has lost reputation. They're bad because the company has lost the ability to simply market and properly advertise their product.
Yeah.
And they're bad because it moves the game in a direction of like this whole thing that me and Carlo said before. You're either in the know or you're not, and that direction that the game moves in is never a good thing. That being said, you know, people listening to my list of 3 things there will have noticed that number 2 being it makes them lose the ability to market the game. Well, I mean,
the problem is that they don't take that opportunity anyway that they do have. So yeah, like, and that's when people get hungry for leaks, when they're not providing any information. So people are looking for any information that they can get. Now, the information they want the most is unit stat lines. The thing they want after that is probably like renders and
scopes.
Looking at units. And now and again, Simon show us future unit renders, but like it's not like a regular thing that they're like, hey, by the way, here's the next thing that's coming out. Most articles and posts that we see by them post-date the release of the unit. Like, they actually come later. The unit has already been in public circulation for months, whether or not that considered an early release pre their proper release date or what, or how
Leak,
it ends up
whatever.
being. But people are after these things because they're not being supplied with them ahead of time, which is like, yeah, and like people say, like if they did their own leaks, if they previewed stuff, then people wouldn't be so hungry for it all the time, and leaks wouldn't be a thing that people really also care about at all.
It's interesting because Ross says he seems to enjoy the leaks when they happen, though. I mean, the difference is that, like, we used to talk about stuff that was revealed in revealed streams or posted by them. I'm not saying they were great at it back in the day. They certainly weren't great at it then. But they were doing, you know, we had the mountain that rides Lannister Hero Box 3 sculpt, and the image with all those things on, which was like, here's the stuff coming out over the next year kind of stuff. And the original kind of mention of dragons and stuff, and all of that had an element of hype to it. And then that became a discussion point that we then went, okay, and then we see the X, Y, Z that come out. And we get excited when those things happen because that's information that we didn't know. It's stuff that we go, oh, cool, that's coming to the game, or whatever.
Yeah.
But
and I mean, like, of course, we discuss things that, you know, because we think that people want us to discuss it, right? Like, I discuss things that I don't particularly care about. You know, like I say, like I'm not into leaks. Like I actually like, and being in the position in the community that I and we are in, like, many people have come to me and like offered me information and stuff like that, and genuinely, I'm just like, no, I'm not interested. Like, I actually don't want your leaks. Like, I actually just don't care. Like, I really don't care. I love the game, but I like what's released and what I can play with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't have a huge interest. And, you know, and sometimes people will even be like, oh, I'm like 99.999% sure that this is right. Do you want to put it on the site and like pre-release the card? And like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, no, like that's not what the build is for. It's not to give people previews that like somebody's guaranteed me is like almost definitely true, which turns out to 50-50 not be true. So yeah, and you know, we're talking about this because somebody asked about the article particularly, and the article is a good example, which is I've known those stats, but I actually don't know how long. Like, I think it's probably a month and a half now, maybe, or longer. We never discussed them at the time because at the time I didn't think that they were newsworthy.
Is it bad?
I wasn't bothered by them at the time.
Is it really bad that I haven't, like, I mean, similar kind of thing. Like, I haven't formed an opinion even on Martells that much outside of being, yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah, I haven't bothered to play them.
No,
I haven't like gone out seeking to play them on TTS myself or seeking to play against them. I'm not. If somebody else wants to play them, I'm fine with that. Yeah. But I haven't super looked into them. Yeah, I haven't super decided whether or not I really do believe that they're going to be super top tier or not. Because they're not top tier until they're being fielded.
And that's the thing, right? Is that it was the first time I literally played Martells today for the first time ever because I rolled a random number generator and it landed on Martells. Like, and it was like, right, I've played this faction, so yeah, I have no intention of learning.
I cared about Martells a lot, and they would be way on my mind right now.
If in France.
If they were going to be in France.
Yeah, same.
Anybody was going to play them in France. If they were legal for France, I would be thinking about them, working about whether or not my lists could counter them, etc. After France, I would probably start to give thought to them because the chances that they'll be at the next tournament that I enter then starts to go up. Next time I want to play competitively, there's a better chance that I'll be playing them. The chances that I play against them at the local club are currently non-existent. I don't believe that anybody in the club or out at an extended region. I think nobody in the northeast of the country has them.
No.
Possibly nobody in the UK has them unless they've like really gone to the lengths of importing them. I did actually see Grant has them. Grant got them imported from Poland. I saw that.
Yeah. They just don't. Yeah.
And I like it. Yeah, them not being fielded is obviously a European thing. Like the US have them and they're playing with them, and Poland has them and they're playing with them. But this is where again it comes back to like in respect to like the meta and stats and like what you should care about and stuff like that. I'm not gonna face them, so I'm not gonna waste energy on worrying about them. In the same way that if you're not going to face Mance, don't waste energy. Don't waste energy on worrying about Mance.
Yeah. It's actually very interesting, and the last thing I'll say, Paul's saying there he doesn't do TTS, but he does a lot of stuff on War Council, and he's excited. I bizarrely am probably going to buy them, but I am not even remotely excited about their release. It's really weird. Like I just kind of feel like they're part of the game, and I'm like, yeah, they'll arrive one day. I've got other stuff I can play between now and then, and I'm enjoying that stuff anyway. Like I'm enjoying playing other factions, not Free Folk. I'm enjoying playing Greyjoys. I'm enjoying playing other stuff. I don't need Martells to enjoy the game, so bizarrely I'm not that excited about it. So
they interest me more than I thought they would, but
because they're good, right?
They're good in a unique enough way against the other people.
Yeah.
Right. Like they actually stand. Like if we consider that Baratheons are good, Free Folk are good, Night's Watch are good. Maybe Lannisters are good. I still can't accept it. Mm-hmm. There are these various factions that are good for various reasons. The way none of them are good in the way that Martells are good. Martells are good in a unique fashion. Their ability to take people to rounds 4, 5, and 6, play deep water, play a different type of victory point game, to play an evasive style, is actually very different, I feel, to all of those other armies.
Yeah.
Like even Free Folk, you might think play some kind of evasive style, but what actually they play is like a blocking style, a sacrifice style, like with their insignificant and high unit count. Whereas, so
yeah,
they interest me more than I thought they would, because unlike Greyjoys, who implemented an entirely new mechanic to the game, they didn't actually.
We will be back in just a second. That was incredible. Surprisingly enough, that was not Carlo disconnecting. That was me disconnecting. So my internet's still working. You can still see me. But I managed to disconnect from Discord. Wow. That doesn't happen very often. Sorry about that, Carlo.
Cool.
That was not my internet. It was actually my Discord crashed, which has literally never happened before. I will have to find out what the problem is there after this episode. That was very bizarre. All right, yes, you were saying Martells.
Well, I was trying to say, I guess what it came to is that Greyjoys, they implemented an entirely new game mechanic in Pillage.
Mm-hmm.
But when you actually look at their play style, they didn't actually implement anything new. They don't actually play wildly different to anybody else. Right?
It's just a bad mechanic.
in some ways, the mechanic is a total miss. Whereas the Martells haven't really implemented any new mechanic. Maybe the inverted turn counter, but like to be honest, like Battle Endurance already has that. It already exists, right? That already exists in the game. All the things that they're doing well in terms of like being able to shift at the start of your opponent's turn. I forget what one's even called.
Swift reposition.
No. Yes. Whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
They all exist already elsewhere in the game, but like the concentration of them and the implementation of them has actually resulted in them having their own unique style currently. I guess they do implement poison specifically through Oberon. And slightly more, and Tyene. So yeah, they got slightly. Okay, they've sort of got a new mechanic, But like, I actually don't feel like poison's not what attracts me to the faction. Although it does have a part of them being so unique. Killing them an MCU isn't actually new. Does already exist in Jackin.
Or used to exist even. Hasn't existed in a long time, but
yeah. So yeah. I guess attaching cards to an opponent, basically a weakening effect outside of tokens.
Now
is relatively new. It's like counter Night's Watch vows in some way.
Yes, and this is actually something I did want to discuss briefly, is that I think it's a bad direction. Not that I think that the cards are being attached or the effects and things, not that interested in the effects, but it's exactly the same problem that I feel Night's Watch has got, in that I just feel it adds a level of upkeep to the game that isn't, like, as a good player, you know what Shields of the Realms of the Men does when it's attached, right? You know what all these cards do when you play them and what they do when they're attached, and all these kinds of things can happen. But it becomes such a long list of things that get attached, similarly with Martel's, that you just kind of get lost. You almost feel like you're reading a book just to remind yourself what's actually going on with the unit, to the point where how many experienced Night's Watch players do you see forget that they've got Fire that Burns Against the Cold, so they can just burn a wound or no wounds to remove a token they just got added on. That does come down to skill, and I do think that good players will get better at that. But I think it's just it's an unnecessary part of the game where just having stacks of things that you have to read through and check isn't a positive thing for the game direction to go in, because it's gone away from the simplicity of here's a stack card, this is what it does. That bothers me.
Yeah. I don't necessarily believe everything about the Martells is a positive direction for the game.
Mm-hmm.
There are also certain elements to like the huge amount of debuffing that they do is in some ways a throwback to the existence of World of Frey.
Yeah.
Back when World of Frey could just shut off all abilities. Now, I mean, they don't shut off all abilities, but as soon as you like are sticking a unit with like they can -2 to hit, right? Like between two different cards. I forget what they are, but like you can give -2 to hit. One's a semi-permanent, one's like on activation or something like that. Like I say, I'm still slightly unfamiliar with them, but I've watched them be played, and you can kind of ignore and shut down like some units without ever really engaging them. So it could become an issue in that like they're unique, that they can be like shutting down these units, which make them become incredibly important inside the two list format, such that people might end up having to, and because they also have Doran, who has another very significant kind of like niche role in the game. They have a few of these niche abilities, a few of these particular ways of playing that nobody else does, that you might have to dedicate one of your two lists specifically to Martells. Otherwise, you're going to get done over by Martells. And yes, we're always kind of hamstrung such that like one of our lists is probably dedicated to something. But if Martells aren't even necessarily the number one option, but you're having to dedicate one of your lists to them, then it could be quite difficult for a lot of other people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's. I'm not going to start complaining about them. I don't think they're that powerful in the grand scheme of things, but they are clearly good out of the gate, which is a lot more we can say about other factions that have just been released. But yeah, I just have no intention. I will straight up apologize if this happens to anybody, but I have literally no intention of seeing a game get played of Martells versus Night's Watch where there is something like 10 cards on one unit that is attached, and you just look at it and go, what the fuck? Like, it was bad before when it was like people were saying, oh, it's so many attached cards from Night's Watch. And you say, yeah, now now have even more, people are just going to forget rules. That's what
It's true, and people will forget stuff, and it will become an issue of like attention and upkeep, which we don't necessarily want there to have to be a lot of, but it is part of the skill. Also,
it is. Definitely
remembering that you can do something with fire that burns is part of the skill. It's slightly harder or slightly inverted when it's like remembering that you need to tell your opponent that they've got a negative effect on them. Feels bad, because like if a person is not, shall we say, shady, but like a person has a debuff on them, which is not a choice, and they activate an attack, they should not. They should be utilizing that debuff. They should be saying, "I'm -1 to hit, so I hit on 4s." But if they just say, "Oh, I'm hitting on 3s," and roll the dice, it's in their benefit to forget that card is there, and then their opponent like has to be reminding them of a rule.
Yeah.
Whereas if a person has a beneficial bonus on them, it's not in their benefit to forget the card exists.
Yeah.
Right. So if the upkeep becomes beneficial to like the active player forgetting that it's there, you're in slightly hot water of like, you don't want the non-active player to continuously have to correct the active player to stop them from accidentally cheating.
And there is actually a lot of that. I remember when we streamed a game once, we were commentating. Was it Rossi versus Mother of Dragons or something? Night's Watch versus Mother of Dragons game. And there was a moment where a player took one less wound or one more wound than they should have taken. I think it was one less. And it ended up literally being the game decider. And it came down to the fact that the player who was responsible for checking on that, one player made it. I don't think it was cheating. I think it was an honest mistake. Just miscounted. And the other player was doing something else at the time, their own upkeep, that they missed the number of things that were placed. And that's not something that is kind of like, oh, someone's cheated or this is bad stuff. But like, you don't want to incentivize that kind of thing happening ever. And for me, it's been incentivized, I think. Anyway, less on all that. So, I did show a picture, Carlo, and you didn't see this, did you? Or you saw it, but didn't get to comment on it. I got some lovely pictures of some Greyjoys today. They're
from Poland, or are they from elsewhere?
These are from elsewhere. Okay. These are from the US. I couldn't find. Do check out on the main group the Polish War Factory pictures. There's loads of them that they took. Here's just a quick sample of some of the others. I actually got a special one. Oh, look, there he is, little Camille. Playing his martels with his bright orange plastic and his bright orange hoodie, and those lovely sauces, which almost look
wow,
like they're done in.
They're colourful.
It's like they've been edited though to be like medieval-esque style. Really cool. But yeah, no, these are from the US. These are from a player that plays in Kurt's community, called Ross.
Mm-hmm.
And he's painted some lovely Greyjoys.
That Iron Maker was stood on a rock, so that's a 0.
A couple of stone rocks there, and some drowned men who don't look too bad once they've got a lick of paint on them. They do look like idiots.
They are surprisingly nice, actually. I say that as in, I'm not a fan of those models.
I thought they looked shit on paint. Like, they actually look bad, and I don't mean this painted one, but like,
yeah,
they look bad. But they look decent with a lick of paint on. So, yeah.
Tough.
Strong 0 from you.
Yeah, strong 0s.
Strong 0 for Ross there. Well, thanks a lot for that. Now, I have some more miniatures painted, but this is a bit more of a special one, right? And I am going to bring this up this week before we go through other stuff. Now, these ones here are painted up and created, put together. These are from Piojo, who is from, I always get this wrong, Argentina.
Sounds right.
Yeah. He is from Argentina, and he's one of the Argentina group that's really trying to push the game in his area. And specifically, what he said, he sent these in, and the reason I thought I'd mention these today, right? Late Walder was the last model to be painted, right? And after watching our streams, and he does a lot of his painting while watching our streams or catching up and things like that, has managed to paint his entire army and multiple armies now, all painted up.
Shows how many hours of our lives we've wasted on,
I know, right?
On chatting here on Tourney ground.
But from when he started, the game all the way through to here, and he's fully painted there. So we got a nice little message there, just saying, "Oh, thanks, thanks for that." And what was it?
Impressive collection.
It is. Nice. It's good, And he says, "Thanks for the company." There you go. That we've given him. Yeah, that's nice. And there's that Cold Hands model that you love so much, just on the corner there. That. Yeah.
Which corner? On the bottom?
Yeah, bottom left. Or not the second tier, if you will, on the left-hand side.
Oh, yeah. I see him. I was looking on the very bottom down at the watch marshals. And I was like, that's not Cold Hands.
But yeah. Cool. Right. I think we're pretty much done for this week. Sticking to
like
stealthy 2-hour episode. But we've got a couple of announcements. So first of all, one announcement before we go through tournaments is that next week me and Carlo will probably not be doing an episode on Monday. And that is because I believe my train arrives at, I think it gets in about 7:30, I can't remember, to Darlington. And Carlo will be getting in about 20 minutes after me, plus travel home. And we'd have been traveling from like 11 o'clock that morning. Carlo's done it before, but at that point it's going to be like 9 or 10 before he can reasonably start an episode. So we'll probably not do an episode next week. Sorry. Yeah.
Been a long time since it's been a Monday without a Tourney ground.
It has actually. It's been a fair amount of time. We may do an episode on Tuesday, but we'll talk about that next week when we can be bothered and when we're travelling and if we can be asked. Because there might be lots we need to talk about from France. There might not. So we'll see. But yeah, and another announcement, and this is a special one. This is not from myself. This is from a friend, and Carlo, I'll send you the link here so you can watch it independently. This is a video that will be going live, I assume, for people to watch directly after this, from Lockerbie. So hopefully the sound plays first time round, and if you haven't caught up on it, catch it up afterwards, but enjoy. No, it didn't work, you see. This is why I need to double check these things.
This is why you should check these things.
Yeah, I know, right? There we go.
Slow pacing.
It is. Building the tension.
Ominously slow. Okay, here we go. Colour me interested.
There we go. So, an event running over the Christmas period between late November or late December, I should say. Yes, November and December. By Lockerbie, who wants to run another one of his Tale of series of events on TTS, of course. Yeah, I'm sure just those who participated in the last one, people enjoyed it. And for this point of the year where the meta might be a bit stale and the game might be a bit, people say it's a bit samey. Yeah, gives something different that people might want to take part in. So yeah.
Yeah, it was super interesting.
Check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Take a look. Also, I mean, I don't know where the numbers are at, but Tom Tyler's been talking about that negatively ranked only stuff event, which for a while at least, when had people really buzzing about it in the Discord and talking about all the interesting stuff that can go on. I think that's a really interesting challenge too. It's similar but not identical to like an ELO format event, where the idea and the concept is that you don't change the game, but you create a new set of balance, for people to figure out. Nothing has actually changed about the mechanics of the game. You haven't nerfed anything, you haven't banned anything. Well, I mean, I guess this does technically ban half of everything in the game, but you create a new ecosphere that people are then interested to try and solve. And the solving of the meta is always an interesting period. Why I always say that more frequent changes would be better for game balance, because the point at which most people are interested is when everybody's trying to solve something for themselves, and nobody's that interested or excited when people are net listing and copying from each other. Mm-hmm. So anything and everything which creates a new challenge and a new unsolved system is what always, which is why I personally believe that ETC isn't a solution to anything, or a community balance isn't a solution to anything, because now you just create a new system which is also going to get solved. It will still have the best thing. Now It might be better, but it will still get solved, and it will still have net listing as a problem. What you need is, you always need the challenge to be a new challenge. You need it to be exciting and different for people to come and have a fresh look at. Not about banning things, it's about the removal of certain things or changing of what's best creates excitement for people to figure it out for themselves, because that's what I think people enjoy the most. So I think this and that other event will both be really, really interesting shake-ups of the game, and things that I'm interested in playing in.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So do check out both of those. I assume Lockerbreeze is going to go up on stats if it isn't already, and obviously the negative ELO one is up there as well. All right then. So our last hurrah for this week, talking about the events coming up. We've obviously got the French National Championship this weekend, which myself, Carlo, Leet, Teddy, Doug, and Ross from the UK will be attending. Plus, I'm sure some other players from the likes of Spain, where I know Mikel is going to be coming up, and of course a lot of French players. We've also got an event happening in Belgium. Small 20-player event in Belgium. I really hope that goes well. We've got an event happening in Leipzig in Germany this weekend. Great stuff. An event happening in Poland because they simply don't get enough of it. Another event happening in Poland because they really don't get enough of it. An event happening in Florida, in Pensacola. It's good to see Calling the Banners 2. More happening over there. Got Oktoberfest, which is another event happening in La Réunion after their, I'm guessing, quite successful event that they ran a couple of months back. They're rerunning stuff there, which is great. An event happening in Odense in Denmark. An event on Saturday. There's some Polish events, and where would we be without a Sunday Polish event as well? The Katowice guys putting their game face back on and playing another event on Sunday. An event happening in Sweden as well, in Västerås, which I can't say I know anything about this group. But Flea Bottom Fight Club, I am actually going to have a little look at this, purely because I didn't really realise that there was going to be a Swedish event. Oh, cool. With players I've not recognised the names of. So that's great to see. Honestly, fantastic to see that. We've got another Polish event. Jesus Christ. They love this game, don't they? An event happening in Massachusetts, Dark Chocolate, Dark Tidings. Love it. And that's it for this week. And then Russian Nationals the week after. So what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 events happening this weekend, of which I'm 90% sure 60% of them... Is it? No, it's four of those 12, so a third. Yeah, a third of those events happening in Poland alone. Well done, Poland. I really hope that everyone has an absolutely fantastic weekend. Play some great games. Any last thoughts, Carlo?
I'm going to smash Mickey at France.
Yeah, and I'll make Carlo realise that the balance really is heavily dominated in Mance's favour. So we'll take it from here, guys. We may catch you next week. If not, best of luck to everybody, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks, I guess.
Ready? Aim!
There's too many.
Anyone see my mammoth?
Stumpy!